Today, we're going to talk about how to identify your true problem. A lot of people think that there's so many problems happening in their life and they're just trying to keep their head above the water, when really at the core, there is actually usually one major problem that is causing all of these small problems to occur. And if you look at that major problem like a giant domino and you knock it down, it will knock down the rest of your problems without you even having to try. But it's actually pretty difficult to identify the true problem when you're in the midst of all these small problems happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So first we need to figure out how to identify the true problem, and then you'll see your life start to change like that.
Yeah. You gave an example before we came on of somebody at work running around trying to put out all these fires.
Yep.
And really, what is the true problem there, right?
What's causing the fire?
What's causing the fire? And so I've shared this over and over and over again on this podcast, but I helped a client one time who was dealing with what they thought was a relational problem. You remember this story.
Yep.
And I said, well, tell me about your problem. Okay, so think about, that's something I want you to keep in mind, because I just ask a very important question. I ask him to stop for a moment and tell me the scenario or the story around the problem, not just what he thought the problem is, because that's number one.
Yep.
So he said something like this: I'm having a relationship problem. I come home at night, long day, I'm tired, and I just want to shut down, and my wife wants me to talk to her. My wife wants me to interact with her, and it's creating a relational problem. So I asked him several questions. What's your energy level when you get home? What are you feeling like? How's your nutrition? How's your exercise? I asked him a ton of questions, right? And basically, long story short, we identified that his problem was not necessarily a relational problem. His problem was an energy problem.
Wow.
So we started to focus on energy, how he would come through the door at night, what he would do to be able to engage with his family at night. And all of a sudden we realized he didn't have a relational problem. He had an energy problem.
Wow.
So let's answer that. Let's go down those steps, because this is an important thing. This is number one in our coaching method. The 5 Ideas coaching method is, what's the problem?
Yep.
So if you're running around at work trying to put out fires, what's causing those fires? What's your system of handling problems? Do you have a schedule? Do you have a system? I mean, it could be a systems problem.
Yep.
It could be a communication problem, right? So number one, here's how we identify, is we drill down deeper than the problem.
Yep.
And that takes questions, the right kind of questions that we're going to ask people. Tell me a little bit about your scenario. Tell me little bit about your problem.
Yep. One of the best ways to identify the true problem is to actually get above it. And I actually just recently took a trip to Ohio. I worked on the trip, but I knew I needed to get into a different environment, because I was kind of just spinning my wheels looking at these problems that kept occurring, and I just really couldn't figure out how to get out of it. So I physically left to a different location to take some time and look at things from a different perspective. And I was able to see, oh, okay, that's an issue, that's an issue, that's an issue. And if I fix those, which were really easy fixes, everything came into line. So it's like when you're flying in a plane, right? You see things from a different perspective. If you're down in a maze, you're confused. You're like, okay, where do I go? I'm lost. Do I go left? Do I go right? Then you start to stress out. Now you have more problems because you're stressed, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're in a plane and you're looking down at the maze, you're like, oh, just go this way, this way, this way, this way, and you're done. So getting in a different perspective, getting to a higher altitude. Now you can't do that like getting in a plane and looking down on your relationship problem or on your money problem or whatever isn't it's not actually practically going to work, obviously, but there's a way you can get above your problems. And it is simply by just removing yourself from them for a moment. Now, don't run away, don't ignore them, but take time and go to a place. The way that you get above your problems is going to a place where you can forget about them for a moment so that you can actually look and say, okay, my bank account's always empty. I'm always paycheck to paycheck. Why is that? I cannot figure it out. You go, take some time with yourself. You write down, okay, here's how much I make. Here's what I'm spending my money on. And you're going to be like, whoa, what is this? You circle a line and it says fast food. And you're like, oh my gosh, all my money's going to that. I thought I couldn't afford my rent. I thought I couldn't afford my car payment. I thought I couldn't afford my electric. I thought I couldn't afford gas. I thought I couldn't afford to fix my tires. I thought I couldn't afford this. And then you realize, oh wait, there's this one item. If I eat out a couple times less a week, I can afford everything else. Now, all those problems are completely obliterated.
I like that. So, number one is go deeper than the problem.
Yep. You have to.
Number two is get above the problem.
Yep.
We call that altitude in our book.
Yep.
But I love the way that you put that. You can't always jump in a plane. You can't always get away on a vacation. But you can remove yourself from the middle of the problem so that you can get a better perspective.
Yep.
So those are, I mean, if you can get away, it's the best. I think in our book on altitude, I was flying into Hawaii.
Yep.
That really changed my perspective.
Yeah.
So if you got a problem, here's the answer, right?
Go to Hawaii.
But there's also sometimes what we do, let's go back to that workplace where we're running around putting a fire.
Yep.
Maybe you just need to pull away, go to your office, sit down.
Yes. That's it. I do that a lot, actually. Or take a quick walk, throw in your headphones, put on some chill instrumental music, and maybe grab a coffee or something and just walk around and be like, this is a practice I do every single day. Stress is actually a great indication that it's time to go do this. Whenever your stress level's getting to the point where you're like, I can't even focus, and you start to want to get into that procrastination mode, that's a perfect flashing red light that's saying, hey, go take a break. Go think about this. Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Because guess what? It's never that bad. It's never really as bad as it seems. It just seems that way because you've got 19 things that are all problems, but they're all stemming off of one. In fact, my business partner, Nick, and I found out one yesterday. Our inboxes are always full. Our business is growing, but I don't want to make an excuse and just have our inboxes always be full. And we know it's a problem. You know, we've had clients reach out to us a couple times on the same thing, and I'm like, man, this is why are we struggling to get back to people in a timely fashion via email? And we actually took some time because it feels like, so like say you get one email in your inbox. I bet you actually probably feel this if you work at a job that has email or that you use email a lot. But say you have one email in your inbox and it's something that you have to spend time thinking about to be able to reply to. You're going to be like, okay, let me take some time. Then you get a second one, and then a third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one. With every new email that comes in, you want to reply to each one of them less and less and less and less because you know you have to, and you know that that it's going to take time and you don't have time right now. I don't like it because when they're sending it, it's because they want an answer to it. So they send the email. It comes to me, and I may not be in a place to answer it. I may be working on something else. That's why I don't love email, because they're working on that thing that they sent the email about right now, and they would like a response right now, whether they say that or not. Then I get the email when I'm in the middle of doing something else, and I actually perceive that form of communication as an interruption. And interruptions are frustrating because you're trying to do something and you feel like people are constantly knocking on your door, trying to get something else, trying to get you to do something that they need you to do. I'm like, man, this feels horrible. I just like, do we just not use email anymore or what, you know? But that's an irrational response. So we looked at who emails us. We made a list. Then we looked at who doesn't email us. And we made a list. And we found something out, which was really cool. So with a lot of our clients, we have weekly recurring meetings. With some of our clients, we have more infrequent recurring meetings. They may be monthly, they may be twice a month. We found out the emails come from the folks who we do not have weekly recurring meetings with. And what we found out is the folks we do have weekly recurring meetings with, and usually these meetings are like 30 minutes. Sometimes they only take 10 to 15.
Okay.
We found out that the folks who know that there's a meeting coming up save all their questions for that time. And we answer them all in that time because that time is set aside for that reason. So we discovered that if we just took each one of our clients and put even a 15-minute weekly recurring touch base, even if we don't have to do it, there might be some weeks like, hey, nothing to go over this week, we can skip. But even if we put it on the calendar, we're going to be right there ready to answer their question right when they have it. And we're actually going to be in the mind frame and excited to work on that because we've set the time aside. So now all of our communication now changes to, man, they always get answers back right away because we do. The second they ask it, we reply instantaneously and come up with a plan together. And so they're not sitting there like, man, it's been 3 days since they replied to my email. Even though we're not talking every day, or we're talking once a week usually, the perception and the way that we're deciding to be in relationship with that client is much stronger because the second they ask the question, we can answer it in real time. Now there's not all these emails sitting in our list. We don't have to be like, that was an interruption because we set the time aside for it. So we discovered this problem. We thought we just had too many emails, too many things going on, too many things. Like, do we need to hire more people? Like, do we need more hours in the day? Do we need to work more? And we realized, like, no, the problem is one thing. And the questions in the emails, they're not even that hard.
It was a systems
It was
problem.
just a systems problem.
So,
And a communication problem.
and a communication.
Because the way we were communicating was not the most efficient.
But you brought something else up that I don't even know if you realize this, that's important in problem solving and identifying the true problem. And I'm going to go back and just repeat these because repetition is a great teacher, right? So when there's a problem and we're just trying to discover what the real problem is, we are first of all going to go deeper. We're going to ask more questions. We're going to get to the core. So we're going to go deep. This is interesting. Then we're going to go up. We're going to get a higher view. We're going to pull away so that we're not in all of the confusion of the problem. We're just going to pull away from it and get a better perspective. The third thing is what you and your partner did, what you and Nick did. You collaborated. And I would say the third thing in really identifying the true problem is getting a different perspective than your own. And that's what coaching is all about. You know that. You coach with me every week. And all I help you do is get a different perspective on something when you have not been able to move through.
That is the best advice you probably will get in this episode. We said it two ways. One, you need to get a different perspective. And then two, you need to get a different perspective. Just write those 2 points down. So get a different perspective by getting away with yourself, but then get another perspective from another person who you trust, you know they're for you, you know they're in your corner, you know that they love you, and they're not just trying to feed you, their opinion and the way they want you to do things.
And a great example of this is for those of you that have a significant other. Oftentimes you're troubled by something, you come home, you share that trouble with your significant other, and all of a sudden they say something and you stop and go, I never thought of that.
Yep,
Or I
exactly.
never thought about it that
I
way.
never saw it from that perspective.
So that third principle of getting another perspective
Yep.
after you've gotten another perspective.
Yep. The problem is never the true problem. Most often
of the
the
time.
problem is not the true problem. I shouldn't say never, but most often the problems you're looking at are not the true problem. The other thing is, I've never seen a problem be as bad as I thought it was. Maybe you have, because you've been alive a little longer than me. But I've never ever seen.
Did you see how he just threw that in,
slightly
Peyton?
longer? Hey, if we're
Just wanted everybody to know out there. Yeah, the old guy to my left, he's gone through. But you know what though? You are exactly right.
I don't know. Have you ever seen one?
I honestly believe that the older you get, the more you realize that. Because when you're young, you have an idea that this is going to catapult into something horrible.
Yep.
One or two things happen. It'll have a way of working itself out. It'll create something in you, a learning lesson that you will gain from, or it could even project you into something greater because you had to walk through something hard or difficult.
Yeah, it's so interesting that, and I'm not saying that there aren't real pains out there and there aren't really difficult situations to go through. I'm not saying that problems aren't real. I'm just saying it's really wise to not create more problems out of one, essentially.
The old double stress principle I talked about.
Don't double stress.
Yeah. Why
pay for something twice?
Why develop a plan for something that may never happen because your plan was based out of fear?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's powerful. It's really about looking at your problem from a different perspective and going to someone else that you know you can confide in to get another perspective. And that's really the beginning. This is just the beginning, by the way. Once you identify it, there are more steps that you now utilize to get yourself in an ideal situation. You're realizing, hey, I'm in an unideal situation. Now, how do I get into the next situation? I'm going to give them all to you right now. We can't spend this whole episode going in as much detail about the next 5, but if you are the next 4, but if you continue listening to this podcast, you will hear all about them because it's all we talk about.
Yes.
It's the 5 ideas method that's developed that helps you go from rich to wealthy in any scenario every time.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
So I just want to interject this because in coaching, we will first of all identify the true problem.
Yep.
So what will happen is typically a client will tell me the problem. That will be about 10% of the conversation. The next 80% of the conversation will be identifying the true problem. You see how that? So
Yep.
This is the problem. No, now let's talk about it.
Yep.
We end up in the last 10 to 20% is easy.
Yeah, it is.
Is it not?
It's
It is
so
like,
easy.
here's the solution,
yeah.
and it almost just flows out of that person. The hard work is in identifying that true problem.
It is. Once you identify the true problem and really come to terms with it, then you move on to the step where you identify or you determine your non-negotiable values around your life. And usually problems are created because people don't know that they have these values that are being neglected. That's what a problem is. A problem is when something that you value is being neglected or not occurring.
Correct.
That is a problem. So a solving of a problem is taking something that you value, that's a non-negotiable value in your life, and making sure that it is happening,
Yes.
making sure that it is occurring frequently. That is how you solve a problem. Or that is, I should say, what solving a problem is doing. Solving a problem is taking something that you value that wasn't happening and making sure that it is happening and is
Like-
not being neglected.
Like the story, for the wife, the relationship was non-negotiable. It was a value that was,
Spending quality time was non-negotiable, and it wasn't happening.
yeah.
And so he thought he had a relationship problem, which he did,
He did.
but that wasn't the core problem.
The core, I like that. It was, and that's the thing that we need to understand. It's not that there's only one problem, but it's one problem can fix many.
Yep.
One, dealing with that core can take care of it. Once we dealt with the energy issue,
100%.
the relationship problem went away.
Yep, exactly. So we identify the true problem. That's step one in the 5 ideas method that Rich developed and uses to coach everyone that he coaches, including myself. And it works every time. It's impossible for it not to. It's identifying the true problem, determining your non-negotiable values. Then after you do those 2 things, it's now time to actually take action on making sure that what you value is happening and making sure
Yes.
that the problems that were occurring are no longer happening.
Yes.
That is it. So step 3 in the method, after you determine your non-negotiable values, is you actually have to set event-based goals. I don't like the word goal because a goal gives somebody an out. If you say, I've got a goal, my goal is to run a marathon. Now you just told somebody, oh, wow, that person has a goal to run a marathon. You have an out because you could just keep saying, I'm going to do it next year. An event-based goal is when you're like, I'm signed up to run a marathon with 5 of my best friends, and we all just spent money on new shoes, and I can't back out of it because they would kill me.
And I train with them 3 times a week.
An event-based goal, and that actually
Which
gets
will
into our
get
next
you.
one.
Yep. I was setting you up, setting you up for success.
So our event-based goal is when you actually attach an event to something. Like, hey, I'd really love to go to this. I'd really love to go see my favorite band. Never do it. Hey, I just bought tickets to go see my favorite band. Oh, okay. It makes it stronger than just a goal, because a goal is really just a dream until you attach an event to it. And when you have the event attached, now it's something that you're actually going to do. That is how you live your non-negotiable values. It doesn't have to be like, think about it. We talk about fitness a lot, but it could be going to a concert. It could be going to visit Hawaii. It could be
dinner with your significant
other. Like they can be smaller. Like, hey, I just want to go to the mall next week, and I haven't been to the mall in a long time. Just want to spend some time shopping. Okay, I've got it on the calendar. I invited so and so, and we have reservations at this restaurant. Like, they don't have to be these massive, grand things, but they can be. It works at any level. It works at, I want to go get a Chick-fil-A lemonade with my wife, to I want to go visit Hawaii. And some of the goals might take more time, but attaching that event to it is going to turn it from a dream into an actual goal and an actual reality. Then the next thing that Rich set me up with is you have to develop fun and repeatable habits. You have to establish fun and repeatable habits around the goals that you have. And the goals, again, are just simply the when and the where that you're going to experience and live in your non-negotiable values that you've identified weren't happening before from identifying the true problem. And the fun and repeatable habit is simply, what are the things that you're doing to make sure that you can do the event-based goal? So if you want to go to Hawaii, you need money. So habits are easy to form when they're based on the things that you already love and want to do. Saving money is hard. Saving money is easier when you know you're going to Hawaii and you're going to get to enjoy all that money. Because if you've ever saved for anything in your life, you know it's hard to save when you don't know what you're saving for. And it's easy to save when you know you want those new Nikes, that PS5, Like I've seen kids save who make like very small paychecks working part-time jobs at the park district, just doing little summer jobs, and they save. I'm like, how'd you get those $250 shoes? Oh, I worked all summer for them.
So you're saying that saving money can be a fun and repeatable habit if there's an event-based goal
To reward you
to reward
based on your non-negotiable values
Yeah.
that you realized you weren't achieving because of the problem that you thought you were facing.
This is a great system.
It is. It works in any scenario for any person every time. It's flawless. And the last thing, and so fun and repeatable habits, like you may have not thought of saving money as a habit, but it is.
We
And-
actually did that. When
Yeah.
Our first time went to Hawaii, and we were not good at saving.
Yeah.
Savings, we put away something like $100 a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Her paycheck, my paycheck, we took 50 each. We put it in $100 a week, and it actually got to be fun.
Because you're like, we're
Because
getting closer and closer.
Yeah, you see that thing grow, and you know you're going to have some spending money when you get to Hawaii. So
That's so cool.
good example.
Yeah, and then the final step, and then don't ever develop a habit that's not based on solving your true problem, that supports your non-negotiable value, and is moving you towards your event-based goal. Like
That would be a bad habit.
that would be a terrible habit. Even if you think it's good,
Yes.
it's not.
No.
Because if you're like, I just need to save money because Dave Ramsey told me to, that's a bad habit and it won't work because it's not fun and repeatable. If you need to save money because, and I'm not dogging on Dave Ramsey at all, but
No, you just
Dave Ramsey
probably
knows
won't do it.
Dave Ramsey knows how to save money because he's got some goals.
Mhm.
What are your goals? Are you trying to go to Hawaii? Are you trying to buy those new shoes? Are you trying to get that PS5? Are you trying to go on that vacation with your friends? Are you trying to go to that concert? What is it? You have to know what it is, and you have to know clearly it's being neglected. So then the final step is you have to set up a system of accountability.
Yeah.
We had a whole episode on this,
Mhm.
and we call it accountability because we found that one of the most powerful ways for somebody to hold themselves accountable. Here's the thing, people don't like the word accountability, and it's for all the same reasons they don't like habits, and they don't like having to set goals, and they don't like problems, and they don't like having to sit and figure things out. And it's because they think it's going to be hard. They think the word accountability means they're going to get punished. They think they're going to get
Exactly.
fired from their job because they're having these weekly accountability check-ins, and they think it's all about looking at what you're doing wrong. Accountability is supposed to be all about what you're doing that you want to do and making sure that you actually get to do it. That's what accountability is for. It's not to look at the bad things that you're doing and beat yourself up and forget about that. It's all about you holding yourself to going to Hawaii, holding yourself to going to that concert, holding yourself to getting in that relationship that you've desired, holding yourself to what you've determined is your non-negotiable value. Everything supports your non-negotiable values. You have to start with the problem because you may not even know what you're trying to solve. Then you move to non-negotiable values. Then you set the event-based goal. Then you set the fun and repeatable habits. Then you set up a system of accountability. And accountability, if you want to know more about that, we have an episode where we talk about bulletproof accountability. And yeah, you're gonna want to watch that one. We can
Definitely.
link it actually on this video. But
Yeah.
any closing thoughts?
Well, just on accountability too, once you become, when you look at the greats, Kobe, MJ, and that's just from the basketball realm, but because the Olympics are on my mind, they held themselves accountable. And they held themselves to a higher state of accountability almost than anybody, but they also had one or two people in their life that really helped hold them accountable to what they wanted to be held accountable. I don't believe you can hold somebody accountable to what they don't want to be accountable for.
Nobody will do it.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
But when you are holding yourself accountable, then you can partner with somebody
Yeah.
to help hold you accountable. And that's when it gets really powerful. I think we talk a little bit about that on that episode we're going to link to.
Yep, it's a power of two. It's just like you talked about with the different perspective.
Yeah.
It's that power of.
Yeah, and that's a good way to close. And let's do this again. So we're talking about discovering or
True
identifying
problem.
the true problem. Number one, go deeper. Don't just look at your problem and stare at it. Dig down deeper to find out what the real problem is, right? Number two, go higher.
Yep.
Get above it. Get away from the problem so you can get a clear focus and a clear understanding. Number three, bring somebody else into the
wider.
problem. Go wider. I like that. So now you're getting a different perspective by getting a different perspective.
All right.
Identify your true problem.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys on the next one. If you want to go from rich to wealthy, subscribe, like, comment, and if there's somebody in your life you don't like, don't share this podcast with them because it'll make their lives way better too. So if you don't like them, don't share it with them because their life will increase so much more. So if you just want to, I'm just kidding.
and if you want to develop a system for self-coaching where you can coach yourself every single day, this is the podcast to watch. Everyone needs a coach. I just believe that with all of my heart. But coaches aren't with you 24/7. This way you have an ability to constantly be coaching yourself.
100%. Everyone needs a coach, but like he just said, coaches they're not with you every day. You need to know how to implement these things on your own so that when you get to that coaching session, it's, hey, I won in this area. Let's focus on the next area. That's what it is. Yep. So join this podcast every week. We make it for you. We're so grateful to have you join us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Rich to Wealthy.